Hello? Yeah, it's working. Hello, good afternoon. So I'm not going exactly to talk about throwing Agile, all the rules away from the Agile manuals, but I'm going to talk how to adapt the rules and change some of the rules so you can scale better your Agile process. So before I start, I would like to know if everybody in the room has already implemented Agile in their organization. If you can raise your hand. OK, almost everybody, which is good. And how many of you has implemented the Scale Agile framework from Scale Agile? A few people. OK, thank you. And I work at Amgen. Amgen does biotechnology. And I'm going to talk mainly about how to scale Agile from small, medium to big projects. And by medium and big projects, I mean more than 10 teams with 10 people per each team. So 150 people, 250 people per project. That is the size I'm going to going through the presentation. So first, I'm going to tell you how we decided to move from basic Agile to use the Agile framework proposed by Scale Agile, and why we didn't want to implement all the rules and all the principles that this framework is proposing. In particular, how we implemented the principles to our portfolio management, so to define the what we want to do, how we implement the release planning, and how we change a little bit the way our Scrum teams were working. Tools is not really a topic, but I'm going to talk about tools, mainly Confluence and Jira software, throughout the entire presentation, since those tools were fundamental to the success of our scalability. So why the Agile book? Why applying the Agile by the book didn't work for us? I want to tell you a story. So as probably many of you have done, the first step in the Agile transformation was to train everybody. And this is what we have done. And I had the experience actually in a couple of previous projects. So we trained everybody, the team understood the principles, and they took some of those principles literally. In particular, the self-organized principle. So teams went off after the training, and they thought that they could decide everything by themselves, which is fine if you have 2 or 3 teams working together co-located. But when you have 10, 15 teams working on the same project, having to deliver the same product, and they are not co-located, it doesn't work very well. So the first thing that happened, even recently, I had one of the developers calling me and say, how can I put a Greek letter in Jira? So at Amgen, we do biotechnology, and we are building a product to predict cancer treatment. And there is a mathematical model behind. So we have a team of mathematical people, and they wanted to call their team Team Lambda. So other people, so I went into Jira, and I saw that all the other teams had already changed their name, and I found the Avengers. I found Team Omega, Team Lambda. They wanted Team Lambda, but they just wrote it down. I found all the weird names. So we had to kind of limit their creativity and say, I'm sorry, guys, you can't really decide absolutely everything by yourself. So let's do a step back. Worse was when every team decided how long they wanted to have their sprints for. So we had teams with 2-week sprints, teams with 3-week sprint, one team with 1 week. And then every team was starting a different day. Some teams starting Monday, some teams starting on Thursday. So you can imagine that managing dependencies and building a release planning together was a nightmare. So we had to kind of limit, again, the concept of self-organization. And we saw that there were some rules that we had to put in place. So the Scale Agile framework had already some of the rules, and we decided to look into it. But we didn't want to apply all the rules and go back to the previous experience. So we said, first thing first, what do we want from a new framework. So we identified 3 goals. The first one, scalability. The second one, predictability. And the third one, visibility. So by predictability, by scalability is what I just said. We wanted a set of rules that could be applied to all the teams working on the same project without removing all the advantages of Agile, meaning self-organization, giving power to the teams. So I like to use an analogy with the teams when I talk, sorry guys, we need to put in place few rules. And I like to use the analogy of the traffic light. So I say, you know, when you drive in the road, everybody agrees to stop on red and go on green. But maybe in your neighborhood, you can define the regulation for the parking spots. So they can be free, you can put a meter, you can put an electronic meter. So that's we need to use the same approach when you scale Agile. Rules are good, but you can't decide 100% what you want to do because you need to work with other people and we need to deliver together. And that kind of the kind of concept that they understood better and they agree with me. So second goal that we had was the predictability. This set of rules that we were putting in place for scaling Agile were supposed to help the teams to become more predictable, meaning forecasting a time box of work, sprint, release planning, 3-4 sprints, and executing on their forecast. So the teams were saying what they were going to do and execute on what they had said. And the third point was visibility. Visibility, we wanted to give visibility 360 degrees, from stakeholders, marketing, sales organization, product managers, top management, and all the teams. And this was possible just using the right tools and put the right configuration in the right tools. Well, mainly Confluence and Jira in our case. So first thing first, we started by looking at the Scale Agile framework. And when I asked the question to my coworkers what they think about this picture, I have very opposite reactions. I don't know what you think about it. If you are familiar, probably you think this is a fantastic framework. It's a very over-comprehensive Agile framework, the best I've ever seen. If you don't know, you might think, oh, this is too complicated. I will never be able to implement this. It's going to take ages to implement all this. So we went step by step. So what did we do first? First thing, we realized that we had 3 different sets of terminology. We have the terminology used by our organization that was still not exactly the same as our tool, Jira software. And then SAFe was proposing even a different set of terminology. So I put in here some examples. There are more words. We want everybody to speak the same language, so we had to publish this new set. We had to choose and then publish this new set of words that we wanted to use. I put some example here between SAFe and Jira that they're still different. And it was too expensive to update Jira or update the Scale Agile framework. Like strategic team are teams in Jira, business and architecture epics are epics, and initiatives in Jira. The one that gave us the most issue is the third one, SAFe called epics features. So that was kind of tricky. Stories are story, likely. So what we decided in our group is to go with the Jira terminology. So we ignore the rest. We adapt our company terminology to Jira, and we publish every definition in Confluence. So, and we gave training to everybody. So everybody was on the same page, everybody speaking the same language. We did the same with roles and responsibilities. We didn't implement all the SAFe roles. We decided to consolidate some of them in existing roles that we had already. We didn't change all the names. For example, we don't have epic owners. We have product managers or group product owners. We actually use both. Architects, I think they are called program or system architects. I don't remember exactly in SAFe. We just call them architects. And some of our architects are also the dev managers of the teams. System teams and DevOps, we consolidate together and we call DevOps, only one team. A new role that we didn't have before is the release train engineer or chief scrum master, that is the person organizing release planning. All the others were more or less the same. And again, what we did to make sure everybody was on the same page, we used some of the definition we had before, some of the definition coming from SAFe, and we published everything on Confluence and train. It was kind of more a presentation more than a training, but we trained everybody to make sure everybody understood. So next, we went ahead with the frameworks. So I'm not going to present absolutely everything. I pick up 4 elements. Every element was implemented or was supported by the tool. So as I said before, we have reviewed our portfolio management, and we decided to use the Kanban methodology that SAFe is proposing to manage our requirements, and that is implemented in Jira. The product roadmap, we took an hybrid, but before our product roadmap was in PowerPoint presentation, or we were using other type of drawing roadmaps. We decided to use Confluence, and then became standard and share everything in Confluence. So all the different roadmap over the different quarters, they are all in Confluence now. Release planning was new for us, and is a hybrid of Confluence and Jira today, the results of the release planning. I'm going to show you some of the details. And we changed a little bit of the Scrum work, but that didn't change very much since everything was already in Jira before we decided to scale. So I will start with portfolio management. In SAFe, this is called program portfolio management, and it's that process to intake your architecture and business requirements and the associated decision-making process. So we went with this Kanban approach that we found very effective, and we implemented the approach with Confluence and Jira. So we said everybody can create a requirement, business or technical requirements. If they want to create a requirement, they should create that in Confluence. We have some problems with non-technical people, but they get help from our product owners and product managers to do that. At the moment, our requests for requirements are in Confluence, and then they are evaluated weekly by a council that we call product council. They are reviewed, and some of them are accepted, some of them are rejected, or kept in Confluence for later. Once a requirement is accepted, it gets into Jira and is created by a product manager as an epic. We don't use initiative much because the structure of initiative in Jira today is not exactly like an epic. So instead of using initiative and epics, we use epics and epics of epics. So if we want a very large epic, an initiative becomes a very large epics that contains other epics. So we haven't found a good solution for that. So that's the one we are going. We hope Atlassian is going to improve that. And we have seen something this morning that is going in that direction. So we're very happy about that. At the moment, this is a manual process. But again, in one of the presentations I've seen this morning, I saw that now we can create automatically from Confluence requirements into Jira. So we are going to try this very shortly. So when the epics are in Jira, they get cross-prioritized, and then they get broken down into stories by product owners. And of course, after that, they get scheduled into sprints during release planning, or during a sprint when we review the prioritization of the sprint. So all the epics are visible by stakeholders, but absolutely everybody in the organization. We decided to go with this 360-degree view. So we are not scared about having top management looking into Jira. And they can access, if they want, they have two choices. Either they access Jira, but it's very difficult for non-technical people. We have the same board in Confluence as a report, and they are able to see something similar in Confluence. For the more advanced, they set themselves as watchers, and they receive automatically from Jira update as we go with the implementation of these epics. So every epic has 3 status. To do, meaning it has been accepted by the product council, meaning yes, we are going to develop. In progress, at least one of the story that belongs to the epic is in progress by one of the Scrum teams. And close when all the stories belonging to the epics have been implemented by the different teams. So what does happen if stakeholder has smaller requests? For example, we have stakeholders and say, oh, this patient, I don't have all the information for this patient. Can you add, I don't know, hemoglobin something values in the UI? Or can you add a banner here? Can you change this error message? So usually these are small requests that require like no more than 1 day of work. We didn't want to go through a big product council process and approval, so we said, okay, we give you a fast approach. And this was not specified anywhere in our Scale Agile framework, so we had to come up with the process ourselves. And we decided to map the same process to the epic process using a Kanban board, implemented in Jira again. So we don't go through Confluence. We let either stakeholders add in stories, request for small feature that they are stored in Jira, or they get the help of our product managers and product owners. They enter the small request. Then the requests are visible as stories in a board. There is a Kanban board similar to one, as I said, similar to the Epics board. Then they are reviewed daily by product manager and product owners. They take in turn, actually, but we do review them daily. So we have probably around 10, 12 product managers and product owners, and they take in turn, and they assign the story to the team or to the product owner that is supposed to take care of it. So they get review. Sometimes they need to be groomed if they are not clear, or if there are some technical issues behind, or we think, oh no, we don't have the API provided its values, so they need to get review, and maybe they go back to the backlog. Otherwise, they can, if they're urgent, they can be assigned immediately to a sprint. And our teams today, when they plan for the sprint, they don't fill up their velocity 100%. We leave 10% open for this type of requirements, since it makes this approach makes our stakeholders very happy, because we can do something very small very quickly. So we don't fill up 100% of the velocity to take care of this. If there are no requests from stakeholders, what we do, we go on the top of the backlog, and we pick up something from the backlog. And of course, after that, they are delivered. Same as for the epics, the watchers, we have some stakeholders that want to follow closely what's happening. Some of them don't care. They just wait for the product manager or the product owners to notify them. But the ones that do care, they can follow that in Jira. And of course, everything is shared and visible by everybody. And we have the same board also as a reporting Confluence with a different format, but it is in Confluence. So we've seen how we define the what and how we prioritize our what we want to do, so the work. I want to talk now about how we execute, how we forecast the work, we plan for the work. I prefer to use the word forecast and planning, and how the Scrum team implements their work. So again, I couldn't speak about absolutely everything, because there will be too much. So I pick up only 3 elements. But the principle of developing in cadence and delivering on demand works very well for us. So we have cadence of sprints, and we have the bigger cadence of release planning, 3 or 4 sprints. And that gives us the predictability, since the teams are really saying what they want to do, following the prioritization given by product managers. And then they try to execute on what they said, they forecast they were going to do. So I'm going to talk about 3 elements that we use to become predictable. One is synchronizing sprints. The second one is normalizing story points. And the third one is the release planning itself. There is like a look ahead of the work that the teams are going to do, forecasting to do. Okay, so why do we want to synchronize sprints? As I said before, it was very difficult with 15 teams to manage dependencies and to understand when one team was delivering something to another team. So the first thing we wanted to solve was really managing dependencies better. So if, for example, I'm a backend team and I'm providing an API, and my friend Ed that I see over there is a front-end team and wants to know when his API is going to be ready. So it's very easy if I say, hey, Ed, you can have my API in sprint 3. So he knows that in sprint 4, which is exactly my sprint 4, he can take the API and display whatever the API is returning in his front-end work. So it's much easier. Nobody has to know, nobody has to go and check what is the time of my sprint 3 and what is the time of the other team's sprint 3, because everything is published in Confluence. And then it becomes kind of automatic. You get in your head as you go. If you keep using the same cadence of sprint of 2 weeks, everybody's on a sprint of 2 weeks, that becomes automatically, you know exactly when sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4 are happening. That gives also transparency to the stakeholders. It's much easier to tell to a stakeholder, I'm going to deliver you this feature on sprint 25 versus I am going to deliver this feature on, I don't know, on the 25th of November. So is kind of the time set gives a span of 2 weeks versus a specific day or a specific week. Like is a good way for the team to say, okay, we know that in those 2 weeks we need to deliver something to our stakeholders. And again, stakeholders, they know that the cadence, because the calendar is available to them in Confluence. And of course, synchronizing sprint is a prerequisite if you're doing release planning. Second point I wanted to present today is a very controversial concept. The normalization of story points. So different agile coaches have very different point of view about normalizing story point for 2 reasons. First reasons, because they say that it takes away the self-organization of a team. And the second reason, because using this method, we kind of associate sort of time to a point, which is not the case, and I want to explain you. So normalized story point means all the teams need to get to an agreement how much value we put behind the points. So I think everybody's familiar. I saw so many hands raised with Agile. So we use Fibonacci and we use story points. So all teams need to agree on what means 1 point. And 1 point is 1 ideal day. 1 ideal day doesn't mean that I take into account just the number of hours of a day. In 1 ideal day, I take in account the volume, the amount of work, the complexity, the unknown, the risks, the knowledge of the capacity, the knowledge of the team. So there is a lot that I need to take into account behind the ideal day. It is not just 6 hours or 8 hours. Then we start with 1 point. Then, of course, when 2 points will be the double, 3 points 3 times, 5 points 5 times. So this is very useful when you have large estimation across many epics, across several teams. And it's also useful sometimes when you want to convert story point in cost. But for us, it was very important because we have people, we still have people moving around from one team to another. We have contractors that come and go. We have people that are not co-located. So this for us was a very good method. And what I told the teams, and I've been actually implementing this in my previous jobs as well, and I've just done it in my current job. What I tell the team is, okay, let's try for 3 or 4 sprints. Let's see if this method is working. If it's not working, feel free to come back with a different method that is better than this one, or let's go back to the previous method. And it never happened. I had 17 teams in one previous project, 14 teams in the last one, and same amount roughly in the current project, and nobody came back saying, no, this is a bad idea, I don't want it because I want to follow the Agile cookbooks that says we want every team to have a different system, and we want every team to come up with their own system. So I'm not saying that it's working for everybody, but it has been working 3 times for me in the last probably 5 years, I would say. And finally, I want to talk about release planning. So how we look ahead, how teams look ahead, how teams forecast their work for more than the basic sprint. How do you say what you want to do in your next product increment? So this technique is fundamental to have a good alignment between business and development. All teams are planning together, and they are planning more than 1 sprint at a time. This is not easy job. So first of all, you have to define the cadence you want to do your release planning. Do you want 3 sprints, 4 sprints? So in our case, we decided to go, we started with 4 sprints in some previous projects, but in my current organization, we are doing 3 sprints at a time, because the 3 sprints correspond to half of the quarter. So we have aligned release planning with the business quarter. And that is working pretty well. So the approach that is recommended by SAFe is having 4 sprints of Scrum work, of sprinting, and 1 sprint, there is a gap sprint that is called innovate and plan. We don't do that sprint in my organization. I tried previously in a previous project, and then we decided to stop with the IP sprint. Today, I'm planning to do that kind of probably twice a year or 3 times a year, or at every quarter. I'm not sure with the current organization, we haven't seen yet. In previous projects, what we have put in place is something that I would not recommend to everybody, because it requires lots of coordination and discipline, which is release planning while sprinting. Meaning you remove the IP sprint, but means that you have to do the work, the forecast work, during the sprinting time. And that can be an issue, since teams are forced to think about the current work they have to do and the future work. So the idea of having this IP sprint is a very good idea, since it lets the team stop what they're doing and kind of think just of the future, while during their sprint time, they're just thinking about the current work. So it is possible. In my previous organization, we have done that for a few months. I've done that for a full year. It is possible. It requires lots of discipline and somebody that is driving that work, carefully giving instruction to everybody. At every sprint, there needs to be instruction, mainly by the release train engineer or the chief Scrum Master, what everybody is supposed to do to work toward the release plan. So my recommendation would be try first with what the book says, and then break the rules. So release planning, I just want to show you what we are doing at the moment, but I've seen the Atlassian is going toward better representation of release planning in Confluence. So very quickly, we have our our Jira functional administrator that put in place a report where information are coming directly from Jira, and they are displayed directly in Confluence. So we have team sprints at every cross. We have the forecast of every sprint for every team. So we have the full picture, something that is not available in Jira today. And this is a running document. I got the idea from a previous Jira administrator in my previous job, and I will not abandon this report until Atlassian is providing something similar. It just requires Jira query into Confluence. It's very easy to implement. And it's a running document. So you use it for forecast, but you can also use it to see what all your teams are doing, since you can see the status. I was not allowed by legal to show the information, but you have all the stories and the status of the stories per team, per sprint, in the entire release plan. So this is a very good view for a release trained engineer. And also for product managers, they are following the work of several teams. Okay, so I am going to next step. So what are the tools we are missing today? There are a couple of tools that we're experimenting. One is the Jira portfolio. We were waiting for the story points to come in. And another one is the C Prime plugin for a program board to manage dependencies. If somebody in the room has already been using these tools, I will be happy to get in contact, have some tips or understand how they are using, because we are like kind of in an evaluation phase. And then I think I have 1 minute. Okay, so lesson learned to close the presentation. So think of Agile as a toolbox. Don't impose Agile to organization. Think smartly about which principles and how you apply the principles to your organization. Give visibility into the entire process, and choose the right tools, the right configuration, and the right administration. And thank you. We don't have time for questions.
That was great. Thank you so much, Luisa. So no, we don't unfortunately have time